Well, the subject matter of these last few weeks just keeps getting better and better, doesn't it? But we preach what we are given, and every year at the end of the church year, we think about the end times. So have you ever tried to make a prediction? Well, here's my top 10 list of some predictions from the past. Now remember, all of these were from noted and trusted people in their fields. Number 10, Charles H. Dewey, Commissioner of the U.S. Office of Patents, in 1899 said, "Everything that can be invented has been invented." Number 9, Western Union wrote in an internal memo in 1876, "This telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication. The device is inherently of no value to us." Number 8, in the 1920s, in response to David Sarnoff's urgings to invest in the radio, his associate said, "The wireless music box has no imaginable commercial value. Who would pay for a message to nobody in particular?" Number 7, in 1927, when they were still making silent movies, H.M. Warner of Warner Brothers said, "Who wants to hear actors talk?" Number 6, Marshal Ferdinand Foch, professor of strategy for the French military, said, "Airplanes are interesting toys, but of no military value." Number 5, Thomas Watson, chairman of IBM in 1943, said, "I think there is a world market for maybe 5 computers." Number 4, Popular Mechanics magazine in 1949 made this prediction: "Computers in the future may have only 1,000 vacuum tubes and weigh maybe 1.5 tons. Number 3, there was an inventor by the name of Lee De Forest who claimed, while theoretically and technically television may be feasible, commercially and financially it's an impossibility. Number 2, Jim Denny, manager of the Grand Ole Opry, said this to a then unknown singer in 1954. "Listen, son, you ain't going nowhere. You got to go back to driving a truck." The singer was Elvis Presley. Number 1, Decca Recording Company made the same mistake when they made this prediction: "We don't like their sound and guitar music is on the way out." That prediction was in 1962 concerning a few lads from Liverpool, the Beatles. You see, we aren't too good at making predictions. But Jesus, the Son of God, is another story. As he and his disciples walk out of the temple in Jerusalem, one of the disciples paused, looked back at the temple and said, "Look, teacher, what massive stones, what magnificent buildings." And Jesus responded with a prediction. "Do you see all these great buildings? Not one stone will be left upon another. All will be thrown down." Now, as you can imagine, this was alarming to the disciples. To the Jews of their time, this temple was bedrock. Nothing could bring down those walls. You know, they had good reason to be impressed. The smallest stones in the temple weighed 2 to 3 tons. Many of them weighed 50 tons. The largest existing stone, still there as part of the Wailing Wall, is 12 meters in length and 3 meters high, and it weighs hundreds of tons. The stones were so immense that no mortar was needed. The walls were stable simply because the stones weighed so much. And the walls towered over Jerusalem, over 400 feet in one area. And inside the 4 walls was 45 acres of bedrock mountain shaved flat. And during Jesus' day, 250,000 people could fit comfortably inside the structure. No sports stadium in the world today comes even close to that. So you can understand the disciples' surprise. Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked Jesus privately, "Tell us, when will this be? And what will be the sign that all these things are about to happen?" It wasn't just a request for information. They were scared. The question came out of fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear that their lives were about to be changed forever. And they would. 40 years later, the prediction came true. In 70 AD, the temple was destroyed by Rome. It was completely leveled. All that's left today is that Wailing Wall. That's what happens to all human symbols of security. eventually they fall. No one thought a structure as so immense as a temple could be leveled right down to the ground. But then no one thought the Titanic could sink. No one could believe the World Trade Center towers could be toppled. But these things happen. Disasters happen. Evil happens. And our symbols of security fall. So we look for security someplace else. When tragedy or disaster strikes, people start making predictions. And just like the disciples and every generation of Christians since, we read our own current events into Jesus' words. Wars and rumors of wars, earthquakes, famines. Yep, we have all those right now. The end must be coming soon. You've heard that before. And we go further. We want to know exactly when, where, and how it will all end. A few years back, I did a Google internet search for prophecies, end of the world, and it resulted in 721,000 sites. I did that search again last night, and there were 46 million hits. There's a library of dates that's been set for the end of the world that lists over 200 predictions for the end, and counting. Why so many predictions? Because it's another form of security. Thinking we know the future makes us feel more secure. But it too is a false security. We're missing Jesus' point. He says, beware that you are not led astray. Bad things happen. We can expect political and social turmoil, wars and rumors of wars. We can expect earthquakes, tornadoes, fires, and every sort of disaster Mother Nature can throw at us. We can expect poverty and hunger. We can expect epidemics like AIDS and SARS and the avian bird flu. As soon as one disease has conquered another will pop up. We can expect trouble in our personal lives too. Disease, loneliness, depression, economic worries, arthritis, bad relationships, difficult job situations, no job. There hasn't been any time in human history when these things haven't existed. They've always been with us. And there has always been a Chicken Little running around screaming, "The sky is falling! The sky is falling!" But Jesus says to all the Chicken Littles of that day and this, that the sky is not falling. Terrible times do not mean that we are in the end times. They're but the beginning of the birth pangs, he says. Birth pangs. That's an interesting choice of words there. What do you suppose he means by birth pangs? We could lump it together with all the other negative images Jesus uses here, but there's something different about birth pangs, something that actually explains everything else he says. You see, as those of you who have children know, in birth you know those pangs are coming. And when they come, they're so excruciating that you don't know how you are ever going to get through it. But you endure because of the promise of what lies ahead. Finally, the moment comes, and suddenly that pain is replaced by awe and wonder, because you're holding your child, your beautiful and precious child. And in that moment, as you gaze at this wonderful, perfect gift of God, love overwhelms you. And then you look into your baby's eyes, and time stops. And you can hear God whisper, "I love you." I think that's what Jesus has in mind. There will be pain, but it's not the end of the story. On the other side of the birth pangs, we will look into God's eyes, and love will overcome us and fill us and wipe the pain away. And then we'll see with all creation that the end is and always has been in God's hands. As we say in the Lord's Prayer, "For thine is the kingdom, and thine is the power, and thine is the glory, forever and ever." It's in God's hands. What's important isn't when or where or how the end will happen. It's who. who it is that's coming, whose hands are holding us. That's the bedrock of our faith. It's the only thing in which we can find real security. Our lives, each moment and every breath, are in God's hands. And for that, we can be truly thankful. Amen.